there, this is Malorian, and after some difficulties with the thing shutting down, we're back. We missed last week, but we're back now with this show. And with me, as always, is...
Cthulhu!
The Cthulhu. So he's all painted
on. Cthulhu for talking. Say it with me.
So have you gotten to use him yet in the game?
Not yet. Oh, Tin Man XL.
Yeah. The man behind Cthulhu.
It's insane! Woo!
So we're going to be chatting today about, some jank and some fun, but also about a little bit of Age of Sigmar, just a little touch, and then we'll get into some more War Machine stuff, some topics we have. But Tin Man, how's been your last 2 weeks since our last show?
Well, so you got in some games the week before this week, so last week. Did some painting, finally finished, Storm Wall is done, the Lightning Pod's done, Dynamo done, Avenger done. So I began work on some new stuff. We got Archduke Runewood here, who I started on. I'm going to work on them later tonight here. Also, the Sword Knight unit attachment. Back in the Mark 1 days, the Sword Knights were my go-to unit. And then I just haven't been playing them, mainly because it's like, well, I need to paint the unit attachment.
Well, I mean, Archduke, sometimes he's hard to put in because he's 3 points. But, man, when you need him, you really need him because guys like Rupert can't put Pathfinder on Striker 2, but this guy can. And if you don't need it, hey, I'll re-roll the hit on your charge attack. Why not?
Yeah, so I got him to go in. He can be included in Constance Blade's theme for us. That's the goal. Also, I actually have a second unit of Precursor Knights that I'll be working on. So I just got to put together the Precursor Knight unit attachment, clean them up. So I'll be working on them in the near future here. But I got everything kind of laid out where I got my Sword Knight unit attachment in Runewood that I'm working on next. Then I've got my 2 Stormblade captains. I'm going to do them. After I do them, I'm gonna work on golly gee, I'm going blank on her name. But she was the first caster introduced in the when Mark II dropped. She's the gun mage with the rifle.
Oh, Sloan. Kara Sloan.
Kara Sloan. Why did I go blank on her name? She's a project that I started working on like 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just let all this time go by without working on her. And then she'd get caked in dust, and I'd need to work on her again. So basically it's a damn it, I need to finish her kind of a thing going on. So I got to finish painting her so I can, 1, use her every now and then, and 2, just so she's finally done because it's just been too long. I just had her as an unfinished project for too long. After that, I've got a
aiming or whatever.
I didn't do anything with that, just the original pose. Then I also got I got a Kador starter box for demos. I got to get that painted. I got a Revenger because my Protectorate demo kit is from the 2-player starter box.
Okay.
But I got to throw Revenger in there just so that there's the option of the traditional starter box there. And pretty much the goal after that is, because once I add Kador to my demo kit, then I'm going to get the Legion of Everblight starter box to add to my demo kit, and that's going to be tight right there because it's like I'll have Lilith, and then it's the way the demo kit's I got like a 2-inch tray and then a 1-inch tray.
Okay, yeah.
So my 2-inch tray will be full of stuff, and then the 1/8 tray has plenty of room for. Yeah, it's plenty of room for the shredders and Lilith, so that'll be cool there.
I mean, it's not that many models, right, for the starters, but yeah, it'd be nice to have all those options.
So I'll have 3 Horde factions and 3 War Machine factions in my demo kit.
Nice.
That's the plan.
Yeah.
And then
the Sword Knight. Sorry, go ahead.
Advanced Deployment announced that they're going to be doing faction tokens, but the difference between the way she's going to do it compared to the way Muse on Minis and Broken Egg does it is that you don't have to buy your entire faction's tokens all at once. You can pick and choose what you want. And that's how she's going to be doing that. That got announced on Facebook today. So I'm actually making a shopping list of all the different tokens I want to buy for the demo kit.
Yeah.
To make it easy to run demos. And just for my personal, for my Italian charter stuff.
Okay. I have so many tokens now, it's crazy. I had my original thing where I got my Signar tokens, and I got some minion tokens. Then there wasn't enough Signar focus and stuff, so I got another set of Signar tokens. And the problem is that I lost it. I had all in this one little case, and I lost it. I figured I must have put it on top of the car and it slid off or something. And so at the last tournament, I had to buy 2 more sets of Signar tokens. And it was not until last night my wife says, oh, this little container looks like the stuff I do for scrapbooking. I took it by mistake. So now I got 5 sets of tokens. I don't know what I'm going to use them for.
You know what I'm talking about tokens?
It's a lot of focus, but I mean, not that much.
I was buying the original Gale Force 9 tokens back in the day. And then Privateer Press kind of ended their partner, the work they did with Gale Force 9. Mm-hmm. And then Gale Force 9 started doing the War Cogs in response to that, so I have War Cogs. Privateer Press would then do its official token set, so I got those. And I gotta tell you that it's convenient to have things to dry erase on, but that can get daunting during a game, as opposed to just grabbing the stuff you need and being ready to just pick it up and set it on the table. I bought the Muson Minis stuff for my Signar, and that was working. That worked pretty good. I got one a couple weeks ago. I got in the game, was able to use it, and it was just going, oh, here's my Arcane Shield. Set it down. Done.
Yeah.
Now, with so I got my Arcane Shield, so that was done there.
It's tough to buy those sets, and you only have so many tokens in them. I mean, Haley 3 is a major problem for that, because on your feat turn, you have 18 focus, not counting if you have, Strange Ways or a Junior or something else, and there's just not enough tokens in any of these sets they make.
Yeah. I backed the Kickstarter that Broken Eggs did, and one of the things I'm going to be getting is their Metal Focus and Fury.
Okay, yeah.
So... Plus, they're gonna have their own one of the I can't talk today. One of the stretch goals was Focus and Fury tokens for their system. So that means I could get more Fury, Focus and Fury if I need it. So far, I actually pre-ordered Haley 3, so when she comes out in a couple of weeks, I'm gonna buy her.
Mm-hmm. She's so much fun. You're gonna love her.
Yeah, I remember playing Haley 1 a lot back in the day. I'm actually one of the reasons we get my Sword Knights together is that I very rarely played Haley 1 without my Sword Knights. Because back in the day, it was all about the Haley Turtle, where it's like you had the trenchers up front. The trenchers back then could throw their smoke out in front of them, so they're hiding behind their own smoke. And then you have like a line of long gunners behind them. The trenchers would dig in so they wouldn't block line of sight. And then the long gunners would be blasting stuff behind them, and then so it's like the long gunners would go first, while the trenches were dug in. They would blast whatever was in range, and then trenchers throw the smoke back up, and then Haley had temporal barrier going. Back then, temporal barrier was an aura and not a pulse, so that just drove people crazy. Me, I was like, well, wait, temporal barrier back then, it dropped defense down by 3, making everything easier to hit. And on top of that, so making everything easier to hit, then I had these Sword Knights that had 2 attacks. Haley popped her feet, they had 3 attacks. Right?
All right.
Rupert Corvolo did his thing. He had an ability called March, where either it was plus 2 inches of movement in Pathfinder, either plus 2 inches of movement in Pathfinder, or an extra attack.
They had 4 attacks each.
We call that the Haley Blender.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can't do that anymore, but still.
Well, I mean, you still have your long gunners with 3 shots. That's pretty good work on its own as well.
Yeah, so we call that the the Haley blender. Like, will it blend?
Pretty much.
Yeah, that. And then flank on the sword knights. That was even more brutal.
Oh yeah.
I dropped your defense by 3. I got these guys have +2 to hit you, and they've got 4 attacks.
Mm.
So
You're gonna die.
yeah. If I get 3 guys on my unit on you, you might as well have been charged by unit.
So, for myself, for the last 2 weeks, been doing some actually painting of mercs. I painted a nomad, I painted a renegade, and 2 buccaneers. So, getting some work done there. Next thing on my painting table is going to be my halberdiers. Want to get those guys painted up. But yeah, I got a tournament coming up, not this weekend, but the next one, driving up 5 hours to like the northern part of Alberta for this King of the North tournament. So that's be a lot of fun. Going to be taking Ashlyn and Magnus 2. So, Constance and Magnus 2. And I played a game yesterday that I'm still on tilt from. The battle report's up now. It was Ashen versus Rias and Saren, like the new twins. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was going to be great. I love Ashen versus Rias. It's like ninja versus ninja. But the dice were ridiculous. I went after Zerial, and I had 4 press gangers attack it, needing 6s, and only 2 of them hit. Okay, whatever. Then I walk up a Rocinante, and out of 4 attacks, hit nothing. So also I'm trying to deal with this Zerial that's all in my face. I kind of jam him up, and I'm like, okay, I need to now kind of waste his attacks. So I put Ashen in a spot where he can shoot me, but he needs like 8s and 10s, so he's probably going to fail. Nope. Hits those with his raptors, crank the damage, and I die because he can roll 10s and I can't roll 6s. So, dice. I know it's like that's a 1 in 100 game, but still, it's just I was hoping for so much more.
Yeah, we've all been dice burned, man. We've all been dice burned. Burn.
I thought I'd been dice burned in the past, but this was harsh. I couldn't believe these dice. But otherwise, talking about jacks, I got one here. I thought that's what I'd use to lead into this Jank or Junk, because with the constants list I'm making for King of the North, I want to save some points. I decided to go with a Nomad. And I got that great kit that Privateer Press has. It has the 3 jacks inside it. And I picked up a spare one just in case I want a second Nomad or if I want to get another mule. And I remembered there's actually a jack called a Rover, which I never see anybody take ever. And I started looking into it, and it's actually a pretty solid jack. I mean, it's only 8 points. It's armor 20, and it has 3 attacks. I mean, it has a range shot that's a POW 14, so that's awesome. And then he gets to use it in melee with point blank. So between his axe and his shield and his gun, this jack has 3 attacks each, which you don't normally see. So I decided to make my list based off of the Rover, and the best one that I found was actually the Bart tier. So in my tier, I am running Bart. I'm running 5 of these Rovers, and then I have Max Press Gangers, Min Press Gangers. I have McDougal, which I need for the tier, and then I also took Dirty Meg. You could also go with max, like double max press gangers and not have Meg, but I figure you want the repair. And so what you get with the tier is on the first turn, your press gangers have stealth. So, that helps when you're getting up there. It might take a few shots. And as well, you get another 2 inches of deployment, which is pretty big because whenever you're doing like this jack wall type of thing, you're kind of worried about being jammed out of zones. So that's pretty big. And then with this, of course, you're just going to be there shooting. All these guys have these POW 14 guns. You can extend the range with McDougal in the turn that you need it. You're always casting your broadsides. You're doubling those POW 14s. Just bam, 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 bam. And, of course, he also has the, batten down the hatches for another 3 armor. So all these jacks are armor 23. So really hard to deal with. And then, of course, whenever they're trying to come at you, that's where you pop the feet. Anything that comes into your line gets knocked down, and you just shred them with all like the press gangers and the 3 attacks per model of these guys, or you just shoot them again, right? Or you make your 3 attacks and then you cast broadside and just shoot again. So I'm not saying this is an A list, but I think this is the best list I can make with rovers. So what are your thoughts on the list?
Well, rovers, definitely a good jack. I actually got a Mercenary Warjack 3-in-1 kit there I was going to put together. I was just trying to decide, well, do I want rover? Do I want mule? Because I don't have a mule yet, and crit devastation. Can't go wrong with that. But yeah, rover having 3 initial melee attacks is definitely good for scrapping. Armor 20 is definitely good for a mercenary jack. It's got more armor than the galleon. I mean,
yeah,
galleon's armor 19.
So it seems like they could do a lot of work, a lot of attrition. And if you just use that, that landslide of POW 14s to take out their jacks, well, what are they going to do to your wall, right? They can swarm you, and then each of your jacks have 3 base attacks just to try and shred them. So I don't know. I think it could do okay. I don't think I want to buy 4 more rovers to try it, but I don't know. I think it has some promise. So what's your vote? Do you think it's jank or junk?
That's a good list. I'm a big fan of Constance Blaze as a mercenary. So,
yeah. So for you guys watching, I mean, vote down below whether you think it's jank or junk. And if someone out there owns 5 rovers, give it a try. Let me know how it goes. So with that done, the next topic I thought we'd get into is just briefly talking about the Age of Sigmar. Now, you were mentioning in your area you don't get to really see the fantasy players. Is that right?
Yeah, I don't see fantasy being played regularly. I've rarely seen it being played. They'll play it regularly for a little bit. There'll be like a league or something, or a group of guys will get together and play it. But I've never seen it be a mainstay like 40K or War Machine. So I myself am not invested in Warhammer Fantasy. I do have some high elves that were given to me by a friend who had moved out of town and moved somewhere where he didn't have the space to keep them. They're mostly unassembled because he hardly played with them himself. So I was like, oh, if I use them, I'll probably put them together and use them for D&D. If I run a D&D campaign, it'll probably be really elf-centric, and bam, I got elves. But aside from that, I've been seeing the nerd rage. And I've seen the reactions, but it's just like, well, other than the fact that, well, these are some nice-looking 40K models when you swap the heads out. It's not really... I don't have a dog in that fight, let's just say.
So, yeah, I don't think we're going to get really into what it is and all this, but I want to talk about, firstly, just mentioning the 3 biggest things that are pissing people off. That is, War Machine players, even if you know nothing about fantasy, you should understand if this happened in War Machine, how angry you would be. Number 1, there's no more points. So this thing here is free. I just take as many models as I want, and that's how you play the game.
Wow.
Here's the second thing. The way they balance it is that it's based off the amount of models. So if you have way more models than your opponent will get a bonus to try and even this out. However, not all models are made equal, so I just take, if I use War Machine terms, 3 storm walls, and it's like, oh, you took a bunch of troops, guess I get a big advantage. So that's not helping. And then they have a slew of rules where it's things like, if you have a bigger mustache, you get a reroll. If you insult your opponents, you get a reroll. It's all this ridiculous stuff.
I ain't even heard of that. Man, so if they did that to War Machine, me and my friends would probably get in a couple of cars together, drive up to Seattle to beat somebody up.
Oh, I mean, your definite or your describe of rage is straight on. It's absolute rage. People are leaving the hobby. They're burning their models. And
don't you burn your models, man? They can always be repurposed.
Well, they can be repurposed, but
when Confrontation died, if you remember the game Confrontation.
No, I didn't get into that one.
A lot of the Confrontation players in Australia, they just started playing Warhammer Fantasy with their Confrontation models. I don't know what they're playing now, but well, one thing though is like, yeah, everyone's leaving, but the thing is, the 8th edition Warhammer Fantasy is still there. You could just continue playing it and disregard the whole Age of Sigmar thing.
Well, I mean, one of the things you don't really see that so much here because there's only been 2 editions, but I bet you some people said the same thing. Oh, let's play Mark 1, and eventually those people just kind of like go away, and it's all just a new player. So it's really hard to keep up with every edition, and fantasy people have said that. But the main thing I was wanting to get to this is that, like you said, people are raging, they're quitting, and so all the other hobbies should be looking for a lot of new players coming. And so I know with you rebuilding your group, one of the things I thought would be really good to talk about is that for us War Machine players, as we're seeing, especially for press gangers and people who are actually more leading the community, when you see these fantasy players coming in to start War Machine, what's the best way to introduce them to the game, to get them started, get them interested, get them over the usual hurdles of like, oh, I got turn 2'd by Kane 2. This game's stupid. Whoa, wait a second. And at the same time, maybe after, maybe a message to the fantasy players saying, hey, this is what you should expect, and this is what you should start with. So batting that over to you, I think this is a perfect thing for you to talk about with your situation, and you're building a group. So if you had 4 people coming in, they're ex-fantasy players, what would you do to get them into War Machine?
I run demos, of course. I'd say, yeah, let me run you through a game, show you what the game's like. I would talk to them about different purchasing options. I'd tell them about the factions. I'd let them know about the all-in-one army boxes, how that's probably right now the best deal for money for getting into the game. Because it's one thing, a lot of people, they'll get a battle box and they're like, well, what do I get next from the battle box? But if you get it's easier to get something like that all-in-one army box and just figure out, and then it's just like, you grab a solo here, unit there, another jack there, and you're good. Plus that all-in-one army box, that's like a straight up, they're really well put together 35-point army list there, and it's good stuff in those boxes. They're not just trying to pawn off the junk that doesn't sell. It's like when I looked at the Signar all-in-one army box, I'm like, and this is just like one of my lists that I use for Siege. The difference being is that at the time I didn't have an Avenger.
Okay.
But literally, it was like, this is one of my Siege lists right here. Straight up. This is how I run Siege. And they're selling this to people. My friend Tom, who's a frequent opponent in my Steam Power TV videos, he looked at the Protectorate list, the Protector box, and thought the same thing. Like, wow, this is a really good list. This is something I would run myself. That's the general feedback we get on these all-in-one army boxes. So they're actually good boxes. A lot of people that might scoff at it and think it's like the GW's Battle Force boxes. No, they're not. That actually get you up to speed. In fact, I played in a tournament a few months back where I played against a new player, and what he was playing with was the Crix starter box, and he did pretty well. It was like, it was actually a 3-round game. We both got 3 turns in.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing. Like those new starter boxes, Privateer Press should really just start cranking them out and putting them up front everywhere, because I think that's a really great thing to get people into. Now, how about places like Discount Games? You can go in there, you can see what all the top winning tournament lists are. Do you think it'd be good to head them that way?
I wouldn't encourage them to become net listers, because the thing is, that's somebody else's thought process behind that list. And when you're a new player, you got to really figure things out for yourself. You got to kind of find your own way. And so if you become a net lister and you set up with this expectation that this is a list that wins, and then what happens? You get your butt whooped. And then you're going, oh, wow, well, this is supposed to be a winning list, but I keep losing. Therefore, it must be something with the game. Because the thing about this hobby is that if you could keep somebody playing for a year, you got them.
Yeah.
But most people that get into this game, they get into the hobby, they get into the game, they don't stick with it for very long. So the whole idea is you want to get them to stick with it. So that's why you want to, if you're a veteran player, you want to avoid noob stomping. Or at least if you're going to noob stomp, turn it into a positive lesson, kind of give them advice on how they're doing. Give them advice like, this is what you want to beat me with the list I'm playing. This is how you want to do it. Kind of, get them under the wing there. Because like I said, most people, they get into this, they last maybe 8 months to, a few months to a year, and then they're gone. Sometimes it's personality things, and sometimes it's just frustration. They just lose interest. It just depends on what the different factors are. But you want to try to make it as positive as possible, And I feel that if you start pointing them to the hardcore competitors and you start pointing them to the net listing culture there that exists in the game, you're just going to hasten their departure from the hobby, the game and the hobby. And I love this game, love this hobby, so we want to avoid that.
So in fantasy, I'm just going to kind of speak from that perspective where they're worried about, well, what's the balance of the game? In fantasy, we had things like the Demon Prince that was super overpowered, and this list was really good. Is that the same thing in War Machine where there's things that are really overpowered and this list is always winning?
There's an extensive playtesting of these models. When they did Mark II, they did what was called a field test, where literally they encouraged us all to get games in and then actually fill out forms and give them feedback. So they got mountains and mountains of feedback informing War Machine Mark II. Also, from that, they started setting up a playtesting network. So there are a lot of game stores out there that are playtest stores where they sign the confidentiality papers, and then they put together proxy armies, and they actually test these new models extensively before coming out. So models themselves aren't OP, and an example of this being Bradigus. Bradigus by himself is not overpowered. Now, what made him overpowered is the theme force. Some of these theme forces can get overpowered. But that's I don't know if these theme forces are as play tested as well as everything else is, because I noticed that as the Forces of War Machine books are coming out to transition us from Mark I to Mark II officially, the theme forces in the Signar book were not as strong as the theme forces in the Khador book that came out after that, or the Protectorate book that came out after that, or the Crick's book that came out after that, the Mercenary book, etc., etc. The very first theme forces were in the Retribution book, and the Retribution for its introduced casters actually the weakest.
So would you steer these new players away from the tier list then?
I wouldn't, but in terms of things dealing with things that are OP, I would, well, no, Body and Soul is out there, World War is out there.
I think that's another big thing too there with kind of going with Body and Soul is it seems that a lot of new players say, like, what's with Cricks? They're so broken. And it seems like that's always a new player thing where you're not used to seeing dealing with all the models. What's with all these guys being weapon masters? Their casters are all so good. This game's broken. And you have to really take that time to explain, okay, this is how you deal with infantry. This is how you deal with these feats.
Well, Cricks has been like that from the beginning.
Yeah.
The beginning. And then also Khador. This game used to be nicknamed Sorcerer Machine. Like every cannon, you had the two list standard steamrollers. So list one. Oh, I'm hearing feedback. All right. So list. Your one list was dealing with Sorcerer. The other list was dealing with everyone else. Should you go up against them? I remember me and Tom going to an out-of-town tournament. People seeing that we were playing Signar and Protectorate, and they were like, wow, we need more Signar players. We need more Protectorate players. You know why? Because most of the people in the tournament were playing Khador and Cricks.
Yeah. So what armies would you lead new players to play then?
What I tell people to do is I say, which models look the coolest to you, and go with them. Because you don't want to be pressured into playing a faction. Be playing a faction just because others kind of pushed you in that direction. Say what looks coolest to you. Chances are, if someone goes with what they think looks the coolest, they're going to be happier. They're going to stick with it longer. The only time I would discourage someone from playing a particular faction is if they're a brand new player that never played this before and they try to start with mercenaries, because there's just too much going on.
I would have said convergence.
Nah, it's not about being the hardest. There's so much going on with mercenaries as to what can play with what. They're not fully aware of the contracts and how they work. So I once had to be the bearer of bad news and tell a new player that they could not take an Ogren Bokur with Captain Shea.
Oh, okay.
Understand it. Or people that they're, in fact, talking about people coming over from fantasy. A friend of mine who's a Warhammer Fantasy player, he's all about the dwarves. So he is a dwarf player in Warhammer Fantasy. You play D&D with a guy, he's always playing a dwarf. Dwarves are his thing. So he got a Searforge Commission army. He wanted to have an all-dwarf army, and then was frustrated about the fact that there wasn't really that much dwarf stuff out there. There just wasn't that much going on in the Searforge Commission contract.
Hey, you got a siege crawler now.
Yeah, there's a lot more now than there was back in the Mark I era when Searforge first became a thing.
So, how about size of game? For new players coming over for fantasy, what size of game would you try getting them into? How fast would you escalate?
When I do demos, it's always a battle box. I always just encourage people to play like mangled metal a lot in the beginning, and then start to work in some solos, and then start to work in some units, and kind of work your way up to 35 points. Even if you start with an all-in-one kit, it's like you got 35 points right out the box, but still play a lot more mangled metal because you get that fun. You learn that fundamental relationship between the Warcaster and the Jacks, and things like casting spells, popping your feet, knowing how to manage your focus, and then of course, then you start to build on that.
Yeah. I think one of the things that could be a complication with that is that fantasy players are used to having so many models. I mean, hundreds of models on the table. And then when they come here and they're playing with, a dozen or 20, it's like, oh man, this is nothing. I want to have more models. So I think a lot of these fantasy players coming in will be really put off by how small the game is and be adding tons of units right away. So you would probably steer them away from that, is what you're saying.
I'll tell them they can build that up because there are different factions where you can have the dude swarms. Because Warhammer is a very different scale of engagement compared to War Machine. So they're both army games. When people say that War Machine's a skirmish game, it never was a skirmish game. It's always been an army game. It's always been a game about nations at war. Skirmish games are often games that aren't about nations at war. It's usually about like secret societies duking it out in the shadows, or it's at a smaller scale. Like Malifaux is just set in a town. The town is called Malifaux. So these are just different factions duking it out in a town. These aren't like nations at war. And War Machine is a game of nations at war. Warhammer is literally a game of different races at war with each other. That's basically what it is. And it's. I just tell people, hey, it's an army game, but it's at a different scale. It's not the scale where this is the scale where it's like, Warhammer is a scale where it's like it's before the camera zooms in on the main characters. You might see that the main character is around, but it's at that scale where you zoom in on the camera hasn't zoomed in on the main characters yet. Now, when the camera zooms in on the main characters in the story, i.e. the Warcaster, right? That's like your main character in the story, and then supporting characters like maybe your character solos.
Yeah.
And the guys around them. That's where you're in War Machine, but it's still an army game. It's still the battle. It'd be like trying to think for comparison. Lord of the Rings. Yeah, it's all zoomed out, and you see the battlefield, and there you see like the orcs and humans just going at it, and then it zooms in on your main characters.
Okay, fair enough. Here's another one that I think will be kind of an issue getting in fantasy players, and that's the idea that in fantasy you get to really fine-tune your characters. You can take as many different characters you want. There's hero class, lore class. You're picking what weapons they have, what mount they have, what magical weapons they have, what spells they're casting. And then War Machine, I'm playing Magnus. There's no way I'm changing this. I can go with Magnus too, but that's about it. So how would you ease them into that?
I just tell them that this is essential to the balance of the game, that this keeps it an even fight. When I played Warhammer 40K, I was in a situation where I've often found myself in situations where it's like, okay, I'm playing Necrons, and my opponent's playing Tau. I'm going to lose. Or I'm playing Necrons, and my opponent's playing, let's see, what's an army I always won against a lot? I think there's like another army that it was just like I won against a lot, and it was almost a given. I'm just trying to remember the faction. It wasn't just trying to think.
Well,
I can't even remember. It's been so long since I played, but still, you don't really get that in War Machine. It's not like, well, I'm playing Signar, my opponent's playing Crix, I'm automatically going to lose. No, Signar could take it to Crix. I've taken it to Crix and won many times.
and I
I've
think it's
wiped
gonna
the
be
smile
key.
off the faces of a lot of really arrogant Crix players over time too.
Yeah. I think it's going to be key for a lot of the fantasy players that do come to War Machine because those players will be the ones who are trying to find that solid tactical game, and they're going to be looking for balance. They're going to say, well, okay, I hear that this is a balanced game. Show it to me. Now, a big part of the way the War Machine does that is with the two lists. So just like I was asking you, what scale of size a game would you start them with? Do you think it'd be good to start them with the two lists right away, or fairly early, or at least explain it to them early, or just like no, forget all the other rules, let's do a battle box, 35 25 points, and we'll go from there?
War Machine tournaments are all about the two lists. That's a steamroller thing going all the way back to the beginning. You got to remember, fundamentally, you're not coming over to War Machine to play the same game. You're coming over to War Machine to play War Machine. It's a different game. It's like you move, your parents move, your dad gets a new job, you move to a new town. You're not going to your old school. You're going to a new school.
Mm.
I mean that's fundamental. So there's no way to just kind of adjust things and make it exactly make it exactly like that form. You just gotta just really emphasize that one, this game's a lot of fun, and that there are tactics, as you said in your recent video here. You notice that the War Machine models have arcs. That they have directions that they can see. Where they're things of charging and counter charging. One thing of what my Warhammer Fantasy playing friends always said is that what they liked is that moving your models where you choose to move them are a very important part of that game. That it makes all the difference. It could be the difference between winning and losing. That is the same in War Machine. So they are going to find parallels. It's not going to be the same, but there's going to be verses that rhyme.
Yeah. So another thing that I think will be different for fantasy players is that they're used to 6 turns. Every game they play, unless they're doing Blood and Glory or one of their special scenarios, is pretty much every single one is 6 turns. And now they're coming to this where it's like, oh, there's a clock involved and there's points involved. How would you explain why this system's good? I mean, having the clock and the scenario, like, hey, guess what? You didn't contest the scenarios. I win on turn 2, basically.
War Machine is and always been a deathmatch game. And therefore, you play it till you get the job done. So if you're on turn, if you've gone past that 6-round standard there, that quite frankly, your Warcaster is still in the game. Your opponent's Warcaster is still in the game. There's still work to be done. You don't go home until the job's done. That's War Machine. It's a lot like chess in that way. There's no set number of turns for playing chess. You just go until you take out the other guy, until there's either a checkmate or a stalemate.
Yeah.
And of course, you don't really stalemate in War Machine. And then through the average game of War Machine, between 2 skilled players, you're looking at 3 to 4 rounds of combat. Each player getting at least 2 or 3, getting at least 3 turns, and then turn 4 being when somebody wins.
Mm.
And there's an echo. But
I think that's a big thing too, is that when I've been trying to get some fantasy players into War Machine, that's been 2 big things that throw them off. One is with a fast caster kill. And they like, well, what the hell? I just got, that's it? The game's over? And you have to really slow down. It's like, okay, this is like chess, or if you want to use a term for them, Blood and Glory, where if you lose your leader, it's game over. So this is how you protect them. You got to layer, you got to use terrain, blah, 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 blah.
There's a scenario called Blood and Glory?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll have to keep that one in mind. Now, the thing is, I've never had these issues when I've gotten 40K or even fantasy players into War Machine.
Mm-hmm.
They just approach it as a different game. I have a little bit of 40K background there. I played Necrons for a while, so I've had experience playing 40K. After Necrons, I did Demons of Chaos for a while. I got back into 40K for a little bit and was playing, but Demons of Chaos, of course, they had some rules that frustrated the hell out of me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm selling that army. Then recently there was a big Warhammer tournament in town where I kind of showed up and hung out. And the dude told me, "Oh, they got rid of that. That's not there anymore." I was like, "Oh well."
Yeah.
I sold that army.
But the second way that they seem to get pissed off is that fast scenario win. They're used to a slow attrition game, 6 turns, and then all of a sudden they hold back. I jump on the flags or the zones or whatever. It's like bang, bang, bang. The game's over. Like, what? This is ridiculous.
War Machines is a fast-paced game. You just want to let them know about that right up front before they put a model on the tabletop. Like, hey, this is a fast-paced game, and if you make a mistake, and generally if you're losing in turn 2, you made a mistake. I think there was one game that was like a battle report I'm working on now. I'm basically going to describe my victory as and then I realized that the open space on the table between the models formed the shape of an arrow pointing straight to my caster.
Oh.
Sometimes that can happen. So you tell them this is a fast-paced game, but if you make a mistake, you can lose quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And if you lose quickly, it's because you made a mistake. You're new. You're going to make some mistakes.
So here's another part of it, too, is that as a fantasy player, if I want to know how to play, I'm going to buy my rule book. I'm going to buy my army book. Depending on what else you're doing, you have to get these other scrolls and things. But where would you lead them to get their information? Do you believe they should buy the faction book? Would you lead them to War Room? Would you lead them to Battle College? Where do you think they should go to get their just general knowledge of the game?
Here's the thing. The faction books were for crossing people over from Mark 1 to Mark 2. They're not essential. What they need is their core rule book. And with the core rule, they got their core rules, of course. There are also videos on Privateer Press Prime. The rule books turn into movies there. They're really, really good for new players to watch. So in terms of just getting general knowledge of the game outside of official public, yes, Battle College is a good place to go. I actually encourage new players to watch battle reports, not just shamelessly plug in my own videos, but I'm saying, hey, there's all these battle reports out there on these different channels. I've referred people to Wargamer Girls videos.
Absolutely.
I've referred people to advanced maneuvers. I literally looked at these are my list of recommended channels on my channel. Click on those, watch them. And it just depends. I guess, all right, well, Wargamer Girls videos. She does the precision battle report thing, so you see every little thing that happens. I've referred people to listen while you play because those guys just have a ton of fun playing. So these guys really show off just how much fun you can have playing this game. Look at these guys having fun here. Advanced maneuvers, you get a lot of tactics. You get a lot of what's going through people's heads as they're playing.
Mm-hmm.
They also point people to bleeped up productions. Actually, more often than Wargamer Girl, because you get two things from Lee's videos. One, he does the precision battle report thing too. Not as much detail as Wargamer Girl does, but he does it. He also has a lot of fun doing it. So you'll see the turn, and it's all he's doing the precise thing. He's doing the precision thing during the turn, and then after the round's over, player 1 goes, player 2 goes, boom. He steps away from the game to talk about how the last turn went, and you just see you see the friendships, you see the fun that they're having, and I'll show that off.
Yeah, absolutely. Like for the brand new ones, I always send them first to Wargamer Girl because, like I said, or like you said, she explains every single little small move and every little box. You get to see everything, and then other ones like you want to see more of like the fun you can have with it. Yeah, Lee, I totally agree. In advanced maneuvers for a little bit more of the in-depth what each player's thinking as they're going through this stuff. But yeah, hopefully we'll be getting a lot of players over from Fantasy to do this.
The last time Games Workshop pissed off a bunch of their players, I ended up getting like 100 new subscribers that month. This was 2011, I want to say, and they changed how they were doing their sales. I created a situation where they made it way harder for people in Australia to get their models.
Okay.
And they changed the rules on like third-party vendors selling models online. So they just made a lot of people angry. So I end up with all these views on my channel and a whole leap in subscribers. So Age of Sigmar is pissed off people as well. But just in my general experience, I've always seen more 40K players than fantasy players, and mainly this is something pissing off the fantasy players.
Mm-hmm.
So the jury's still out on that. Like I said, I don't have a dog in a fight, I just like almost bought a White Dwarf magazine because it came with that model, and I went, "Oh, this model looks cool." Because I do stuff like that, like Game Trade magazine sometimes has free models in them, and I'll buy them. Like there's like a stack of old Game Trade magazines at my game store where they've been there for a while, but they had free Malifaux figures in them, so I just grabbed a bunch of them because
impulse buy,
yeah, I was like, well, it came with this mini, yeah. But as I said, I don't have a dog in the fight. My investment in 40K was a friend of mine giving me his High Elves, and I thought about playing High Elves, but I was going to go the Kings of War route if I did.
Mm-hmm.
And then Seattle James, who was in a lot of my videos, was also a fantasy player. He had actually loaned me the Warhammer Fantasy rulebook that I was reading for a little bit, and there was a discussion of what faction I would get into, but I didn't stick with it.
Okay. So there was my big topic I want to talk about, is how to get all these people in, that hopefully we're going to see a flood of all these people come to play. But, I mean, we're getting into the last 10 minutes here. I mean, we have a good amount of viewers. If you want us to talk about anything, I mean, just put in the comments, and we'll talk about it. But was there anything that you were wanting to cover for this show?
Anything I was wanting to cover? Let's see. Mostly I just want to let y'all know that Minoff John is not the only one that can do this. Ain't that right?
Yeah. Sponsors? Is that what just happened there?
Brought to you by DiceRage.com.
Oh, okay.
That website. That website that no one's visited in quite a while. But will soon be transitioned to WordPress and will replace the old Steam-powered TV blog, which also has not been updated in a while. Why? Because Blip TV. Screw them. Screw them in their eyeballs.
Yeah. So I thought maybe, I mean, we're in the last 10 minutes. If you didn't have anything else, just to kind of we're supposed to be more Jank Tank here, and people had kind of asked before if we could just talk about just random models and talk about how they're good for the game. Do you have one in mind, or do you want me to grab one?
Well, let's see here. Grabbing one. In Reach, we've got...
Because in Reach, the one that I was thinking we could talk about is this little solo here that you never, ever see. And that's that little Gun Mage Tempest solo that they have.
Except I use them all the time.
You do? Well, that's perfect. So why don't you explain why you love him?
Well, for one thing, he sacrifices his movement. He ignores stealth. That's always good. Brutal shot. That's always good. Guy mages with brutal shot, ignoring stealth is definitely good. He can also push things, which is this Signar thing. Mainly, I painted mine up to be old and black, and go, damn, I had 2 days left to retirement whenever he gets taken out.
Oh, he doesn't have the push thing.
He doesn't have push?
He has brutal damage, he has snipe, and he has Phantom Seeker.
Oh, that's right, Phantom Seeker. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I play with him all the time. I didn't even know his abilities. I just lost all my credibility. But how many times have I misspoke on this show or just got my models mixed together? That's the thing about being an old-time gamer. Is you get gamer Alzheimer's there. You start mixing everything up.
Well, the other thing with that, too, is that he's already starting at Rat 8, which is amazing. Mm-hmm. So if you're aiming, you're going to Rat 10. And, I mean, I totally missed that part there where if he aims, he gets to ignore stealth. And so with that and snipe, I mean, he also has advanced deploy, so he's pretty far up there. So if you have an Iris that's trying to hide and sneaking around something, hey, guess what? Phantom Seeker, bam. I'm going to aim. I need just 6s to hit you. And he can do a lot of damage there.
And then she could turn around and she could hit him with the cannon and take him out instead. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's a good solid elf hunter, and ignoring line of sight. Back in the day, the Storm Smiths ignored line of sight. We used to call them elf hunters because there used to be this rule that no longer exists called invisibility, where when you went invisible, you were It was like +4 to your defense.
Okay,
Couldn't
yeah.
be targeted by range attacks. Stormcall was not a range attack. Stormsmith dropping lightning on elf, kill elf. It was all kinds of fun.
Yeah, because I mean, my buddy likes to run sometimes two of these guys, and I mean, you just run them behind another unit, something else, advanced deploy or whatever, and they just start going to work back there, right? Either aiming and then Phantom Seeker to shoot over all the lines and hit the support pieces in the back, or I mean, just doing the brutal damages wherever you need them, right?
I've got two. I've got the official one. I also have a substitute one. He's actually an Iron Kingdom figure. He's the Dragon figure from the Iron Kingdoms, and basically I painted him up to look like a gun mage. I painted him up to look like a Signarin officer, and I use him as a stand-in for my second gun mage captain.
Yeah, I mean,
which I'll do until and when they officially do a resculpt for him, then I'll bring in the second one.
And he's also a Tempest. So if you run with Kane 1, then he also gets to get the Gunfighter. Yep. And so I guess you can just get right in there, right? Advanced deploy, defense 15, you're going to be fine. And then basically with his Rat 8, he's just like, yeah, bam, you're dead. Bam, you're dead. And he can really do that work from the front as well.
Oh, yeah. It's, of course, I've had bad experience with running him into combat like that.
Oh, okay.
But, yeah, high defense up in your face in close combat against something that has just average Mat and Rat. That is definitely a good thing.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, there you go. The Gun Mage Captain Adept. You should try running it because he has some cool abilities that isn't all that bad. I mean, there's a lot of options for 2 points, but it's getting a brutal damage and all that good stuff is not going really wrong at all.
And let's not forget me.
Did you have a model there that you want us to talk about quick?
Talk about quick. Well, I got stuff on my page.
Spot. What's he gonna pick?
What's he gonna pick? Well,
it's that new minion model, Cthulhu. The newest heavy.
So yes, because they happen to be out, these two.
Yes, good choice.
Unit attachment, a very solid unit attachment. They were better in Mark 1. You know what they had at Mark 1? It was completely broken. They had dismantle and dismember, so they got an additional die. They gave the Sword Knights additional die against War Beasts and Warjacks.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize it was OP until I was playing a game against a friend who hid his Warjacks behind his caster because he was afraid of my Sword Knights. We're playing a Formal's Mangled Metal, 1 unit, 1 solo at the time. It was like 500 points because Mark 1 had a different point structure.
Mm-hmm.
And he was playing Scorn. He hid his War Beast behind his caster because he was afraid of the dismantle dismember abilities of the Sword Knights. And then instead I ended up running a Lancer to engage his caster. And then I charged in with my Sword Knights. And I was like, dude, what was that? And he's like, I just didn't want you using your dismantle against my Warjacks. He's my War Beast, because you've been doing all these attacks, doing all the damage to flank and dismantle, and you'd have been, well, that's insane. And I was like, you hid them behind your Warlock, man. Yeah, I tend to say Warlock and Warcaster interchangeably, and it kind of throws people off. But yeah, that's like, okay, this is over OP. And then when Mark II came out, the first thing they did during the Mark II field test, oh, hey, my Sword Knights don't have dismantle anymore.
So
how many viewers we got? Because I'm not getting tipped off on that on my screen here. You should tell us.
We were going around 6 or 7.
Oh, hey.
But, so talking about what they have now, and one of the nice things about them is that, I mean, the Sword Knights themselves are a cheap unit, 6 points, and this is only a 2-point UA, so really easy to add. And if you look at the back of the card, there is a bajillion rules. So you're getting a lot with getting this guy in there.
What's cool is when they attack a War Beast or Warjack, they get to pick where the damage goes.
Yes.
So you literally, it's like the dice aren't grouping it. You are. So it's just like, I need to lock this arm off. Guess where the damage is going?
Yeah, because normally they have the ability.
Node. Guess where the damage is going?
Absolutely. Or just, yeah, if it's a beast, guess what? Spirit every single time.
Mm-hmm.
But normally they have that penetrating strike, so they can always do 1 point. But yeah, then he has the tactics for the precision strike, and then you get to pick wherever it goes. So it's like, oh, is that Cortex almost out? Or like you were saying, like, I get to put it wherever you want, and that could be massive.
And that would be devastating against the Colossal.
Oh, yeah, it could be. Gonna flip it over to the other side. Is it, can you actually do that?
I want to say no on that, because it's the way those things are arced down.
Here's what. I don't think you can. Because here's what it actually says: when the model with precision strike damages a warjack or war beast with a melee attack, choose which column or branch suffers the damage. So I don't think you get to also pick the side, but
yeah, that's a whole different beast here.
Another thing he has, it really helps that, I mean, again, until my one friend started doing this to me, I didn't really realize it, is that they have a drive. You can go and you can put jacks with him. He can be a jack marshal. Yep. And he has pronto, which can really get some things going. So sometimes I know for Signar players, it's nice to throw in that Centurion or something just to not really load up with focus, but just to hold the zone. And these guys are great for it because with pronto, they're really getting that Centurion up the field. And then, of course, they have flank, so they love having that reach jack right around them.
One idea of something to have on the table with them is the Minuteman. Yeah, the Minuteman doesn't have reach, but if you want to take out one target, here's what Minuteman does. Minuteman runs up and then jumps over the target and gets behind it.
Now, if it was being Jack Marshall, they wouldn't be able to jump unless you like power boosted with like Strange Ways or something.
I very rarely marshal my Jacks, man.
Okay, yeah. But I mean, it's not bad. Pronto is a great drive to have.
Yeah, if I'm gonna marshal a Jack, it's gonna be a cheap Jack. Like if the Buccaneer was a Signar Jack.
Oh boy.
Yeah, that would be like
Go Nemo 2.
That would be beautiful.
Yeah.
That's what Signar needs, a 3-point warjack.
We do. Also known as 3-point cover.
Yeah, 3-point warjack with maybe a reach weapon.
So another thing it has too is it has practice maneuvers, which is not super, but sometimes it comes in. And it says, while this model is in play, models in this unit gain practice maneuvers. And what allows them to do is ignore the other models in this unit when determining line of sight, and they can advance through each other. So it makes it a lot easier to get charges off and moving through each other. If you have the Archduke like you're having, it makes it a lot easier to get your defensive line going after. So it's, it's not something like, oh, wow, this is massive, like you get with Precision Strike. But, it's just a nice little extra thing on the card, which sometimes helps out.
And don't they have reform, or am I thinking of something else?
No, they'll get reform from the Archduke.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I know they got reform somewhere. Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So otherwise, that kind of takes us to our 1 hour. So unless you had anything else you want to cover?
Any comments in the comment section? Or just
no, they're always so quiet. I think we're just so, they're stunned by all the jank we're giving them. No, I don't know. Or we're so handsome. But no comments I see here. But again, for people watching, we'd love to answer your questions directly. So let us know what you want us to talk about. But either way, we'll be back next week. So we'll see you then. And so, bye.
Till next time, keep on wargaming.
And we're off the air if it ever stops.
Man, it's still saying live on my end.
It's still saying live here, too. I pushed the thing. It says stopping. We're going into extra innings here.
We were like animals fight for